Welcome. My name is Brandon Muramatsu. I'm with MIT, and we're going to be talking about opening up assessment, some of the tools and some of the ideas that we have about creating open shared item banks of assessments and letting you put assessments into any piece of content, any piece of web accessible content that you might want to. We have a number of co-authors, and today Justin will be doing some of the demos, hopefully. Hopefully the technology works. If it doesn't, the front two rows, we're going to help us with some interpretive dance. And maybe David will join us, kind of depending how things are going with all of the things that he's doing. So we've been working on this project called Open Assessments. So if you go to openassessments.com, this is the home page. And essentially it allows you to put an assessment anywhere you might want to. So a quiz, a question, a set of questions. We'll talk through kind of why we got started with the project, where we're at with the project. We've got a fully functional working implementation. There are lots of ways we can take this and move forward. If we have a little bit of time, maybe some of your questions will kind of help guide us as we think about moving forward. One of the things that we've been noticing is that content assessments tend to be separate. And over the last 10, 15 years of open education, we've spent a lot of time focusing on content, a little bit of time focusing on policy, a little bit of time focusing on practice, so how do we teach with these and use these things. But it's primarily all around content and use of content. Sometimes the content has assessments included in it. Those assessments today tend to be PDF files. They tend to be static items. You can do them once and that's it. Or they're contained in separate quiz and test systems. So there's an entire well-known way of managing assessment items and quizzes and assessments, but they tend to be separate. So you have content and then you have assessment. And so you go through, you look at content, and then after you've done that, you come back and then you do take an assessment. That may not be the best way of doing things. So what's some of the potential? One of the reasons we started the project is to try and do for assessments what's been done for content. So allowing both items and collections of items to be shared, to be embedded, to be used anywhere. And instead of having sort of static representations, say in a PDF file, you can also take the assessment, answer the question, get a response back, send that information back to the instructor who included in their materials, send it back to a shared repository of questions and assessments and answers to start to build the history of how people are using those quiz and test items. We're focusing on formative assessment for a couple of very specific reasons. It's easier. We don't have to worry as much about security, authentication, authorization, whether somebody's trying to cheat. You can cheat yourself. We've taken the approach that that's fine with us for at least for this step. And we want to help learners do a self-check of their own understanding. So ultimately, they're only cheating themselves. We can take this and build this into a much more complex system, but this sort of got us started very quickly and lets us move along very quickly. So let me give you some examples of what's being done today with OERs and formative assessment. And I'm not trying to pick on any of the folks here. I'm going to end up using Sailor.org and OpenCourseWare and one of the edX courses as my examples. Sailor.org, large collection of courses that have been assembled from many OERs that exist on the web. They pulled together and made coherent packages when there weren't necessarily coherent packages. And here's an example. This is in a math course, pre-calculus 2. And the way they've done assessments, because they're reusing existing materials, and those existing materials started off as a PDF, you get a link to a PDF file. So you can go through and look at the content, then you get this PDF file. That's the quiz that's linked there. And so what happens if you want to take this assessment? You have to download it, you have to get another piece of paper out, or open up a scratch pad or something, do the answers, and then maybe if there's a solution summary posted, then you can go look at another PDF file and see that solution. That's not necessarily, we think, the kind of most interesting way of doing this. Some examples from OCW Scholar. OCW Scholar is a sub-collection of the MIT OpenCourseWare courses focused on self-learners, trying to provide a kind of a package specifically targeted at people who are trying to learn these things for themselves. Most of the other open course materials have a wide range of materials included in them, from lecture notes to sometimes exams to syllabi. And these are designed specifically for you if you want to learn these topics, to be able to step through them and get a kind of complete experience. One of the examples out of the 803 course, the Electricity and Magnetism course, is the ability to check yourself. So within the page, you've got learning objectives, some activities you can do, watch some videos, and a check yourself question, and then sort of a fairly simple view and hide the answer. So I've expanded it here. What you might do as a learner, you're going through materials, you read the question, you stop, you pause, you think about it, and then you view the answer. Still not necessarily a great experience. It works, but it's not necessarily as interactive as you might want. Here's another example from OpenCourseWare, different class, an embedded multiple choice question, and they're actually a set of 3 questions. So you can take the questions, it'll tell you what the right answer is, and that's sort of it. So it's within the page, it's helping you check your understanding. One of the things that interests me about this is, and David is here, wow.
Sorry to interrupt.
I've worked out with, so David had a couple other things he might have had to do. I've got a great slide to introduce, transition to him to talk about embedded item banks. So set of multiple choice questions. Here's another example from a different Scholar course, very similar to the Sailor example. There's a PDF, and then there's also a set of solutions. So you can click on each one, look at them separately. That's an example of one of the PDF questions. So it's a simple multiple choice question. One of the things for me that's interesting about what's been done with some of the MOOC classes is the notion of interleaving content and assessments. So you look at a set of content, and then right away you get to see an assessment question to check whether you understand it. So this is an example from edX, from one of the MIT courses. Udacity does some very similar things. Some of the Coursera courses do as well. Here's some examples. You're going through, you watch a video, you click forward to the next segment, and then there's a question. You can answer the question. In this case, it asks for a numerical answer. It's a formula answer. And so the engine on the back end will analyze that and tell you whether you've gotten it correct. Our approach, openassessments.com. So our approach is we want you to be able to take an assessment and put it anywhere. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Justin to talk about kind of some of the things we've done with the technology, show you some of the examples, just to show you how it works.
The streak of never having you display work. Well, it does. I just wanted to say, it's good that David Wiley's here. I think it's really awesome David Wiley's around. I noticed Brian Lamb and Scott Leslie tweeted they were having a drinking game. So anytime somebody says David Wiley, they're supposed to take 3 shots. So they should be sufficiently fast. David Wiley.
Cheers up.
I also wanted to point out that we're big fans of Remix. I brought I don't know if you recognize this shirt from however many years ago. This year's shirt is a remix reuse of this shirt. But I have one of the originals. How many people have an original one?
How many people have a black one of those?
How many people have a black one? Oh, Seth has one.
I have one too.
I have like 5.
So that's where all of the extra ones went. So the black ones that were from volunteers.
Because I'm going to do this one tab at a time and see if we can have an easier time this. Okay, so here's what it looks like if you can find the assessments. I know where they are. You probably don't. That's by design. So but this is what they look like, and we have this little tag down here at the bottom that says embed. Okay. So to put this quiz on your website, in your little piece of content, all you have to do is copy this little bit of code down at the bottom. So that's relatively simple. There's no anything involved. You can put it on a static HTML website. You can put it on a WordPress blog, you can put it into Canvas, and I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay. So, I'm sorry, how do I mirror this? That's the problem.
So this is where the interpretive dance comes in.
The original inspiration here is YouTube. Right? Now you can take a video and stick it anywhere, and there's one line of code, and you can take that one code and paste it in. Why can't we do that for assessments as well? And honestly, some of the inspiration is Carnegie Mellon here, right? So that's some great formative assessments in line, but no way that's really easy for us to reuse. So why couldn't we make a YouTube for assessments and give me an embed code that I can stick my formative assessments where I want to go? How's that for dancing?
So we're actually looking for people who have these assessment banks, who have quizzes that they're willing to make open. So far we've done a lot of open content. Now we're asking for open assessments. So now that you can take the content, you can have assessments.
Well, that's something we were looking into a lot. We do at UBC a lot of republishing of the wiki content into the WordPress sites, so that you can create your resources and actually republish them either in your LMS or anywhere else. We actually are working kind of on IA sequential architecture model for this. But in our mind, it should be a little bit more than just the embed code. Because we already developed something where you can watch a YouTube video and then there will be a quiz coming out, and if you answer correctly, you can continue watching, but you can also collect points on the way, whether you got it the first time right or not. With the embed code, we wouldn't be able to do that. So we need a little bit more.
Let me show you what we.
Okay.
They're actually.
So there's an API. Or?
Yeah, there's a little bit of an API here that I'll show you. Just like it's not very much, but it's not very hard to extend it either. And I think.
I was just curious if people are going to be able to modify the assessments when they're in there.
That's the hope. Yes. So that you'd be able to take an assessment and you'd share it out, and you'd take, and then you could reassemble it, and you'd remix. I mean, we're all about the remix and the reassemble.
Right, so I guess what you're seeing here is an assessment with 10 items in it. The initial implementation is to be able to import both items and assessments. We kind of sidestep the editing, the creation of it, so you have to create it in another tool, import it in, and then you can deliver them wherever. So Canvas, Moodle, those kinds of things.
So actually with this system we standardize, we use QTI. We don't love QTI, but everybody does QTI, and so QTI is a common language. And we actually created all of the assessments in Canvas, and then we just export the QTI and dump it in here. So you can use kind of whatever authoring interface you prefer, and eventually we got one as well, but it does QTI. So. This is the code. There's a link to the code on the website. If you want to go, you can pull it down, you can take it. So I think it's going to be on my license. There's no joke there.
It's actually going to be, it'll be BSD licensed.
Okay, so MIT's help, but it'll be BSD licensed.
MIT doesn't license its own materials, MIT, with the MIT license.
That's the joke. Okay, here's the API documentation. If you want to dump assessments in, you can actually use whatever tool you like. You can use curl on the command line and dump assessments in, because our guys have done that too. So if you really want to do it, you can. And it's actually not that hard, so if you really want to do it, I can show you. Okay, so here is, I started with it completed because I'm always worried about the network and these things, but here, everybody, I don't know if everybody went to the OER pub presentation. It was really pretty cool. They do OER books, and they have the editor, and then they save it off to GitHub, and that's all really neat. And I thought, well, what if we stuck one of these assessments inside of a book? You can do that. What you can't do in the editor is edit the HTML directly, which is what you need to be able to do to put in the embed code. But there's a really cool trick that you can do in Chrome. I can just come in here and find the embed code.
Right, so within that editor, if you're creating a textbook or a website using the editor, you use it to manage your course materials. And then most of the time, you're sort of stepping through and just sort of reading or seeing a static view of things. But here, we give you the option. You can insert the iframe code and the embed code.
So if I can edit the HTML directly, maybe I can.
And this is an idea we just started talking about yesterday. It'd be really easy for us on the editor side to put a button in and be like, embed a thing, and it'd be really easy to just paste the thing. And
yeah. Kathy, we were talking via email last night, so I was going to talk about that.
yeah, I was going to bother you guys later today.
But any time you can actually edit the HTML, which you frequently can when you have these WYSIWYG editors and whatever program you're using, you can dump this embed code in and then voila, you've got a quiz. So that can be really handy, and if there was a whole bunch of people willing to contribute, then you can just reuse other people's codes. Right? So instead of this highly guarded, when I was in college, the professors were all ticked off because they knew all the fraternities kept all the old tests. And the students would just go through the old tests and be like, oh, I'm going to have to rewrite the test. It's really horrible. But it actually was really good because the students were going through and finding out how much they knew. They were taking a whole bunch of assessments. They thought they were cheating and beating the system, but in fact they were doing formative assessment. They were learning, and so it's sort of humorous, right? It's, like your students unintentionally are learning. So to the question about how this thing communicates, this is a course, with Open Tapestry, we have a whole OER remix, discover, do cool stuff platform. This is that platform. We did a thing with Western Governors University, so you can see here's this video that they want their students to watch, and then here's one of these assessments down below it. So this is actually, I don't know what the answer is, I didn't watch the video. But something about the Danielson framework, somebody here I'm sure knows. But now when I take this, yeah, I'll see if it's incorrect. It gives you this feedback. But in our system, we have this notion of tasks and percent complete. So as you complete the task, it says you are 5% complete, 10% complete. It helps you track your progress in the course. When I submit this, this actually has a callback to the page. So the script calls back to its parent page using post message for anybody who writes JavaScript. And then you can intercept that message and do whatever you like in your system. So you get all the information about, did the student get it right, did they get it wrong, what was the feedback, and then you can absorb that into your own elements. This was just a quick, we integrated it into Open Tapestry, so I can come in here and search, and you can find one of these things, and you just drag and drop it. Now it's a part of your course. Here's, okay, I'm gonna actually try one more life demo. The network is a little flaky in here. Trash this, so I can come in and say, go out to YouTube and find me something on OER. I should search Jim Groom, that would be much funnier. So then I can dump that video in, and now that's interesting. I have a piece of content. Let's get rid of this and pretend like it wasn't there. Grab assessments as one of the OER sources and say, give me whatever. I'm going to drop that in. So now I've got a reversal. Okay. Anyway, so now I've got a YouTube video. My students come in, watch the video, and then take some kind of formative assessment. And if you wanted to link these two up, then you can add a little bit more code to say once the quiz or once the videos are progressed to this point, then make the video appear, or once they've completed the quiz successfully, then make the next video.
Part of what Open Tapestry lets you do, though, is go to any web page and modify it in place. So kind of the vision for this is, imagine the OCWs, which are largely static. Well, you want to use it, but you want to add engagement. So you go there and you start dropping in these quizzes. And now in the context of doing them inside of Open Tapestry, you have these assessments.
Okay, so then one other place, I don't know how many users of Canvas we have, probably at least some people. Okay, so there's some users of Canvas, pick whatever LMS. Again, this is done through an LTI tool. If you're familiar with LMSs, LTI is probably familiar to you. It's just a common standard. It works with Moodle and Blackboard. With one exception, the Canvas guys implemented an LTI extension that allows you to add a little button up into their editor. So I can do the same thing here. I can click this button, and now I can embed an assessment into my Canvas course the same way that I did into the pages previously. So I can come in here and say, let's go ahead and dump this. So, save that. Yeah, so, anybody else ever run into this bug in Canvas? The first time after you save anything with an iframe or a YouTube video?
Yes.
It's
You have to reload it to get it to show up.
reload the page, so.
I can do that in Moodle too.
Go on down bracket.
Sorry, Bracken's in the back here.
I logged that bug like a year and a half ago. Anyway, so there it is inside of Canvas. But that's pretty cool now because I can have this open data bank of assessments that I can provide to my students inside of Canvas, and they can engage in formative assessments, they engage in the content, and we can all share alike, and we share our assessments instead of, letting fraternities and sororities share our assessments. Just saying.
Why don't we have
That's it.
David talk a little bit about the creation of item banks and some of your thinking about that. I didn't say David Wiley because then somebody would have to go away and drink.
I'll just sneak up here to the front very quickly. So, as we go around talking to faculty in schools about adopting open textbooks, that conversation is easier and easier to have every year. But the times that it is difficult still, one of the things that we commonly hear is, I'd love to adopt that open textbook, but my commercial textbook has all these quizzes that come with them. And I love this whole idea of saving students money, but I don't love it enough to go rewrite all of my own assessments from scratch again. And so we passed that feedback on to the Hewlett Foundation earlier in the year. And over the summer, they awarded us a grant to create test item banks. There will be, every item in the bank will be licensed with a Creative Commons attribution license. I saw on Twitter I'm not supposed to say CC BY earlier because that, oh my gosh, you're here? Hi. Because that keeps people from understanding what's going on. Thanks. Anyway, so it'll be a bank of items.
Because that's what happens when you use CC BY. You just do these weird random pauses.
For at least 20 of the highest enrolling courses, so like Bio for non-majors, U.S. history, Intro to Sociology, courses like that. We're going to create, I'm guessing that they're going to end up on average being probably about 750 items per subject area. These banks of items for the 20 highest enrolling courses, the items all be in QTI. QTI happens to be the format that Open Assessments uses. So one of the places that will dump all of these assessment items is in Open Assessments. And then if you're teaching Intro to Social, you need you want to throw some formative assessments into the open textbook or into your LMS, wherever, so that somebody, as they're going through, can just do a little check to make sure they're understanding or ask for a hint, get some feedback. All those items will be there. The items are openly licensed. Open Assessments is free, easy to embed with the one snippet of code that you take into your website. Hopefully that starts to lower even further the barrier to entry, the barrier to adoption. Folks who'd like to adopt open textbooks but haven't been able to get there in the past because of this lack of it.
Very good, thank you. So we have about 2 minutes left. Why don't we stop here and take any questions there might be?
Your API, someone said, you were saying.
Oh, you want to see the API? The API isn't a question, strictly speaking.
So it's just.
So you have to phrase it in the form of a
What, I
question?
mean, no, you were qualifying that your API was, I mean, I'm really excited that you have one.
Okay, awesome.
That's what I want to say, but.
I get excited about APIs too, but I'm usually the only one who actually gets excited.
We can talk about that later too. Never mind.
No,
There was a
but
question in the front.
there is this little bit of API documentation, like saying you can interact with it using standard REST protocols, and I'll go here and
No, so we'll go
go over
in
here.
the front.
I'll let Brandon do it.
Once I've added, I'm guessing I can't edit the quiz if I want to add another question?
Correct.
No.
That is correct.
Not right now.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We'd love for you to
Well,
be able to do
actually,
that.
you can make it live reference a QTI file living wherever on the internet, and it just acts as a player.
Right,
So if
okay.
you wanted, if you had some other tool where you're editing it, and then it's just up to you.
I was just thinking if you wanted to put like a change it just ever so slightly or something.
Yeah. So that's definitely on the roadmap, but.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it. The quickest way to get something up and working was this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
There's like a really hardcore MVP.
One more
Yeah.
question or not?
Yeah, is the accessibility of the iframe implementation a condition of the LMS or of the content that's being embedded?
Accessibility.
Yeah,
When you
508,
get to
504 accessibility. There's
Okay.
problems with iframes that don't have titles.
Yeah, so it's going to partially be a problem with wherever you've embedded. If the person strips out the HTML, then it would be iframe accessibility. We can control accessibility of the content of quizzes on our own, but not of what the author does, just to the iframe. So
Right.
that one piece may have some. But only if they take it out.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Let's thank our presenters.
Thank you.